Picture this, a cork board with some vertical lines creating columns, and inside those columns, sticky notes. This is basically what Trello is, but instead of cork board, it's called simply board. The columns are called lists, and the sticky notes are called cards. When you first open Trello, you see something like this, but you may see less rectangles, and these rectangles, they are the boards. There's a lot of information on this page, and we'll come back to it at the end of the video. For now, I want to show you how to use a board. So let's click on this one. A good analogy for a Trello board is a group chat conversation. But instead of chatting, a board is a place where you and other members can keep track of a workflow. Lists work as stages or steps in a workflow, and you can create one clicking on Add a List. Next, give a name to each list. You can also rename them and move them to another position. If you don't need a list anymore, you can click the three dots and choose to archive it. As you saw, clicking on the three dots on the upper right corner of a card displays a menu. So let's go through all these items. Add card, I believe, is self-explanatory. This will add a card to the list. Copy list will make a copy of that list. You can use the same name or create a new name. Then we have move list. You can move a list to a different board or a different position on this board. If you select watch, you now see an eye icon on that list. This means you'll get a notification every time something changes on this list. For example, if another member moves a card to this list. The items in the next group belong to the automation feature. This is not the scope of this video because this is an advanced feature, and you'll find more information about it on my Trello automation course. As for the items in the next group, they are related to cards in a list. So let's go back to the board, add some cards to those lists, and then we can come back and I can show you how they work. And finally, the last item is archive this list, and you already know how that works. To create a new card in a list, click Add Card, give it a title, and that's it. Any board member can drag a card and move it to a different position in the list or move it to a different list. If you hover the mouse over the card, you see a pencil icon that will provide access to a menu. But hold that thought for a moment, we'll get back to this soon. For now, let's go back to the list menu for a moment. If I want to move all the cards at once from step 1 to step 2, I can select this option. And if I want to archive all the cards in this list, I can choose Archive All Cards in this list. Don't worry, you'll soon understand where all these archive items are and how to bring them back to the board. Clicking the card will reveal many more options. At the top of each card, you see the card's name and the list where it is. Both can be added from here. If you select Watch, you'll get a notification every time any other board member changes something or adds anything to this card. And just like when you are watching lists, you also see an eye icon on the card. I suggest you only use this in a very specific situation. Believe me, The last thing you want is to be bombarded with notifications all day long. Next, there is the description box. This is an excellent place to explain why this card exists. But if you are familiar with agile methodologies, this can be a great space to write the story. Activity is where you can write a comment or a message about the card's topic, or you can add another member of the board. All the comments and messages are in chronological order, and if you click Show Details, you see the information about the card history. Who created that card, who moved that card, who added new items to that card. The details tend to be pretty long because it will log everything everyone does on the card, so it's a good idea to leave this off. Now let's take a look at all the options on the right-hand side of the card. Clicking on Members, you can add one or more members of that board to the card, but keep in mind that all board members can see and edit anything on a board. So the best way to think of adding members to a card is as if you were assigning that card to a member. And here's a tip from my advanced Trello course. If you hover the mouse over the card and hit the space bar, you can add or remove yourself as a member of that card. Cards can also have labels. These labels can be a simple color, or you can add a text to that label. Note that you can have many labels with the same color, but with different text. Although both labels here have the same color, the filter will see them as different labels because each one has a different text. And again, another tip from my advanced course, if you want to see the label titles outside the card, one click will show the labels. And if you don't want to see them, you want to see just the color, click again to see just the color. I prefer it like this. You can have one or more checklists in a card. Let's call this one A, and add some items. And let's call this one B. Checklists can be reordered, and the items can also be reordered. When you start checking the items, you see the Hide checkbox items. You can click here to see only the uncompleted items. And of course, if you want to see the full list, just click again. Depending on the plan you are paying for, you can also add due dates to a checklist item and also assign that item to one of the board members. And finally, any item in a checklist can be deleted or converted to a card. And here it is, it's a simple card, and the card title is exactly the same description you added to the checklist item. Trello cards can have due dates, and the due dates will show up outside the card. And depending on how close you are to the due date, the color will change. So let's pretend this is a due date for the 14th, 9 a.m. As you can see, now the color is yellow because that due date is approaching. And if the due date has passed, let's pretend this was set to the 12th. Now the red color shows you that that's overdue. And depending on the plan you are paying for, you can also add a starting date. You can add many types of attachments to a card. You can choose one from your computer and upload it to the board. You can add a link. That link can have a description. And soon I'll show you how to also add Trello cards as attachments. Cards can have a cover. This can be a color or an image provided by Trello. The card cover can be displayed like this, or you can make it as a background. As you can see here, the cover button disappeared, but don't worry, it is up here. So let's change this to background. And now the text is over the cover. And finally, you can upload your own image. Custom fields is a very powerful feature that unfortunately is not available on the free account. You can create specific fields that are checkboxes, dates, drop-down menus, numbers, or text. For example, let's create price and select number. Now we have a new field here. And if we go back to our card view, you can now see the price on the card. But if for some reason you don't want to see the custom field in front of the card, just select it and uncheck Show Field on front of the card. Now it's not there anymore. Custom fields can also be rearranged. So let's add another one. To rearrange them, just open the custom fields, drag and drop. Custom fields are board-based, so if I create a new card here, you see the same custom fields here, but of course I can add different values. I'll skip power-ups for a moment. We'll get there later on the video, and automation, as I said before, has its own course. Let's go to move. You can move the card to a different position on this board, a different list, and a different position in that list, or move it to another board. You can also copy the card to a different position on this list with a different name, or copy it to another board. I'll get to make template in a moment. Let's check the two last items. Archive will archive this card. From here, you can delete it or send it back to the board. For now, we'll leave it archived because I have to show you where these cards are. As you can see, that card is not on the board anymore. So let's open this one. And the last option here is share. We can print this card, export it. There is a link that you can send to other people. Just remember that only members of this board will be able to open the board. You can also embed this card, and again, only members will be able to see it. Some of my clients use this feature to embed cards on intranets. Each card has its own email address, and you can email information to the card using this address. The email content will be added as a comment on the card, and if there are any files attached to the email, these files will be also attached as files on the card. And finally, you can delete this card. Deleting a card is permanent. There is no undo. Remember hovering the mouse over the card to see the pencil? Well, this is just a shortcut to some of the card options. For example, you can click here to add and remove labels from here, change the cover, and so on. Okay, let's take a look at the templates. Let's say you have a combination of items in a card that you use all the time. For example, let's say I'm always responsible for the new clients, so I'm now a member of this card. Let's say this type of card will always have the label A and a checklist. And by the way, here's another checklist feature. You can choose one of the checklists you have already created on this board. So let's choose checklist A and add it to this card. Now let's make this card a template. There's now a blue bar at the top of the card, and we can close it. This card can be anywhere on the board, but I like things to be a little bit more organized. So I always tell my clients to create a resources list and move cards like this to that list. You can have many template cards, and to use it, all you have to do is click on the lower right corner of any of your lists and choose one of the template cards. And here we can change the name of this new card and select the items we want on the card: checklists, labels, and members. Create card, and now we have a copy of that card with all the items. Now that we have more cards on this board, you can learn how to attach one card to another. If we click the Attachments button again, you see some suggestions. However, if your card is not there, go to the card you want to use as an attachment, go to the Share option, copy the card link, go back to the other card, click Attachment again, and paste the link. And this is a live representation of the other card. Anything you change on that card will show up here on this icon, and you can also click here to go to that card. But there's more. If you choose Connect Cards, you create a back and forth link. So if I click here now, I have a link to the previous card. And we can go back and forth. You can create cards or board attachments. Okay, now let's go through all the menu items. Let's start with About this board. You can see the board admins. You can add a description to this board, and you can change the permissions. Clicking here, you can move this board to another workspace. Below here, we can set the comments to all members or disable comments, or even to all workspace members. This is another important setting. You can restrict adding new members to the admins, or all members can add new members. Any workspace member can edit or join this board, or if this is not selected, only the people that you invite to the board will be able to join and edit the board. As for card covers, you can disable them. As you saw, the cover disappeared from the card, or keep them enabled. Collection is a premium feature. You can learn more about it on the Trello Advanced course. It's just another way to organize your boards and workspaces. And don't worry, you soon understand what a workspace is. Every board has a log of everything that happened on that board, and you can also filter it by comments. And here's where the archived cards and lists are. You can go through the list or use the search to find a card. And if you want to, you can send it back to the board or delete it forever. There's no undo here. You also have the archived lists, and you can send them back to the board. Settings is exactly the same thing we just went through when we were taking a look at the option board items. It's exactly the same. You can change the background of your board using one of the pictures provided by Trello or a color, and you can even upload your own image. Just keep in mind that the background is the same for all members. Custom fields and labels are exactly the same settings we went through when we took a look at them inside the cards. So we have here labels and custom fields. Again, automation has its own course. Power-ups are special add-ons that add functionality to your board. As you can see here, there are many options, and you'll find a link in the description below to a playlist where I explore power-ups. For today's video, let's use the list limits as an example. Each power-up has a page where you'll find information and instructions, but let's go to the board and I'll show you how to use this one. Note there is now a new item, set list limit. Let's set this to 3, save, and now if I move a card here, there are already 2 cards on this list. Let's add a new one. The limit is 3. I have 3 cards of 3. Let's add a new one. If you are an agile enthusiast like me, I think you'll love this one. You can see now that there are 4 of 3 cards on the list. It is yellow, but if I move one of the cards, the number of cards went back to 3 of 3, and the list is not yellow anymore. Now let's take a look at stickers. Yes, you can add stickers to a card. And if you open a card, you see the sticker there. You can hover and remove it if you don't want it anymore. It is possible to create a board template, but this is a premium feature. Just like you can do with cards and lists, you can also watch a board, but I wouldn't do this because you get a notification every time anything changes on that board. You can make a copy of the board, choosing a different title, the same or a new workspace, and you can choose to keep all the cards and the templates, or if you uncheck these options, the new board will contain only the lists. Just like the cards, you can email anything to a board, but in this case, you'll be creating a new card. The title of the email will be the title of the card, and the content of the email will be the description of the card. You can choose where this card will be created, select a list and a position, top or bottom. Be careful with this email address because anyone with this address can send emails to the board. Print, export, and share is self-explanatory. You have here the address of the board. Again, only members can open the board. You can print the board, export all the information as JSON, that is industry standard, or if you are a premium user, you can export it as CSV. And finally, you can close the board. This works more like archiving the board. It's not going to be on your list anymore, but you can reopen it. If we click close and close the board, it's now archived. You can reopen it from here or delete it forever. Let me show you where your archive boards are. If we go back to the main page, you can see here, view all closed boards. And we can again delete it forever or reopen it. Choose a workspace and the board is back. Now that you learned how a board works, we have to go back to the beginning and take a look at that home page. I'll explain all the elements there, and then we'll come back to the board to take a look at the 2 menu bars at the top of each board. Yes, there are 2. You'll learn what are the differences between them, and how to use them. As you can see here, there is a menu at the left-hand side of the screen, and we'll go through all the items. The first one is boards. Here's where you find all your boards. You already know how to get to a board. To create a new board, just click Create New Board, give it a name, choose a background, and select a workspace. You soon understand what a workspace is. Another useful feature here is star a board. You can hover and click the star. Let's start this one too. Now you have a new group at the top of the screen, and this is the only place here on Home where you can rearrange the boards. Think of starred boards as shortcuts. Below starred boards, we have recently viewed. These are the boards that you recently used. And below that, the workspaces. We'll get there. Next item below boards on the menu is templates. These are boards created by Trello and other members. I never use this. I'm going to tell you what I tell all my clients. A good board should be a good representation of your current workflow. So you may use this as an inspiration, but your board has to represent what you actually do. So let's go back to boards here and select Home. This is a very useful space because it has everything to do with all your activities on all your boards. The first group contains all the checklist items assigned to you. Below that, we have Up Next. As you can see, the card with the due date is there. And below that, we have highlights. These are cards you are interacting with. For example, if you commented on a card, it will be here. If someone replied to that comment, you also see it here. And talking about reply, you can interact with all these cards from this page. You don't have to go to the board. For example, I can click here, reply to this message. And if this checklist item is complete, I can click here to mark it as done. At the right-hand side, you can see the starred boards, the recently viewed, and you can also create a board. Can you see how useful this space is? Almost everything you need is here. You also have access to the workspaces on the left-hand side. In my case, I only have one workspace. You can have more than one. So let's go back to the boards view to talk about workspaces. Having just one workspace or multiple workspaces will depend a lot on your workflows and how you want to interact with the information inside all the boards. But one thing that you have to have in mind is that the workspace is a container. Many features and many interactions will not work outside that workspace. You won't be able to connect information from different cards that live in different workspaces. There are very large companies that I work with that use only one workspace, and on the other side of that spectrum, some very small companies have multiple workspaces. It will depend. So let's take a look at the settings. As I mentioned before, I have only one workspace. You can see it at the left side of the screen and also at the center with all the other boards. All new workspaces will show in both spaces. To create a new one, just click the plus icon, add the information, and follow the steps. Think of a workspace as a space for the same group of people working on different projects, the projects being the boards. I'll go through the settings now, and I think you understand it better. The setting items are exactly the same on the left-hand side and also on the main screen. The first one is boards. These are exactly the same boards, but here you can filter them in a different way. And if you are a premium user, you can create collections. In a way, is a group inside a group. And I talk more about this on the advanced course. If you have many boards, the search can help you. I can create a board from here, and I can also view closed boards. At the top of the screen, we have the name of that workspace. You can change that name. You can create and change a short name, and you have the option to also add a website and a description. You can also invite members from here, but let's go to the members option to see everything that you can do from there. Invite member. Here you can add an email address or the member username. My suggestion here is to always use an email address to invite people to a workspace or a board. If you start typing a username, Trello will go through the entire Trello database of usernames, and you can imagine the big mess you'll be creating if you invite the wrong person to a workspace or to a board. You can misspell the name or use a wrong username. So don't do that. Invite people using the email address. You can also create a link to invite that person. Again, I think the email address is the safest way to do it. Below that, you see all the members that belong to that workspace. You can make one or more people administrators of that workspace. You can remove that status from one or more people. You can remove people from the workspace. There's also a space for guests. This is where you find people who have been invited to a board, but not to the workspace. That guest can be, for example, a person from outside your company. Maybe you need that person to have access to a board and interact with some of your team members, but you, of course, don't want it to have access to the entire workspace. And again, you have some controls here to manage the guests. And finally, we have pending. If you invite someone and that person didn't accept the invitation, you see the name here. Let's go back to our main page. Now let's take a look at settings. From here, you can turn on the Atlassian AI. It's not the scope of this video. You can change the visibility of your workspace. Be very careful here. Public workspaces are public. Anyone on the internet with that link, Google search, anyone can see that information. So unless you want a public workspace, don't make it public. Below that, some premium features inviting you to upgrade. And talking about premium, if we go back to our home page, there is views, which is also a premium feature. The last item here is the guest workspaces. I'm a guest on one of my clients' workspace, and this is what this is. This is a board from a client, and I'm a guest on that board. Okay, now let's turn our attention to the menu bar at the top of the screen. The first item here is a pop-up window with links to other Atlassian services. Next, we have the Trello logo that works as a shortcut to always come back to this page. From there, workspaces, recent, start, and templates are exactly the same items we just went through. And we also have a create option. You can create a board, you can create a board from a template, and you can create a workspace. Remember that I told you a board has two menu bars? So let's go back to our board. And what you see, the first menu bar is the one I just showed you. You can, for example, from here, go to another board. The start boards are here. You can go to the recent board, to a different workspace, or even a template, and even create a new board or a new workspace. Below that, we have the board menu bar. Everything that happens above is related to Trello including the search box. If you search there, you'll be searching all your boards. To the right, we have the notifications icon. All your notifications across all boards will be here. This is where you see all the notifications related to the cards and lists you're watching, and also when people comment you in the activity box. You can set it to show you only unread notifications, or you can see all your notifications and even mark one or more of them as not read. Next, you have information about Trello. You can go to the website, blog, and other information about Trello, the company. And to the right, you have your profile. Here you can switch to a different account if you use more than one account. You can manage this account, and you can change the visibility of your profile, see your activity, cards, settings, change the theme to dark mode, for example, the help page, go to the shortcuts page. By the way, you can also get to the shortcuts page by typing the question mark, and you can log out from your account. We're not going to do that. Okay, now let's take a look at the menu bar, because there are many other features there. First, if you click here, you have access to many of the items we went through on the Trello homepage. Let's close this for now. Next, there is the name of the board. One click here and we can change the board's name. The next item is to star or remove the star in this case. You can do it from inside the board. Here we have the workspace visibility. If you set it to private, only the members you invited to this board will be able to see all the information here. As you can see, there's a check mark on workspace. It means that it is set to workspace, and all the workspace members can see and edit this board. Again, there's the public option. I have already talked about it. Don't make your boards public unless you want them completely open to the world. Next, we have the views. You can set this board to a table view, a calendar view, timeline, dashboard, or even map, but only on the premium account. And this is a topic for the advanced course. To the right, we have power-ups. All the power-ups you added to the board will be here. From here, you can change the settings when it's the case or disable the power-up. You can also add new power-ups by clicking here. Automation, again, has its own course. I'll skip filters for now. I'll come back to it in a moment. Let's take a look at the members. Here you can see all the members of this board, and the member or members with the two arrows pointing up on the avatar are the administrators of the board. To invite new members, just click share. Again, I suggest using the email address instead of the username for safety reasons. And this is an invitation to the board, not the workspace. This member is a member of the board. As you can see here, I have the option to add it to the workspace. And finally, there's the board menu, but we have already gone through all these items. Let's take a look at filters. The first item here is the search box. This will search only the board. So let's try it. For example, F. As you can see, the result is a card with the title F. Let's try new. So if you want to search only the board, use this search box. If you want to search on all your boards, use the search box above. Next, we can filter the cards by member. As you can see, there are only 2 cards where I am a member, and I can still work on the board, move cards around, edit cards, do whatever I want on this board with the filter active. And of course, I can clear the filter to go back to the full board. There's also the option to combine, let's say, a member with an overdue card, and now we have only 1 card. There are other options here: due in the next week, due in the next month, marked as complete, not marked as complete. We can go even deeper. For that, let's make this tags different. So now the 2 cards have the same member but different tags, and I can perform a similar search. I can select the member and the tag. And if I search for that member, that tag, and the overdue, there is no matching card. Of course, you can choose only one of the options. For example, I can choose just the tag. And finally, there are the activity options: active in the last week, last 2 weeks, last 4 weeks, or without activity in the last 4 weeks. Okay, I made some changes to the board to show you this last item. It's a very important filter setting. The first one, any match, means that any label or any member selected will be filtered. For example, if I select here A and B, I'll see all the cards that have A or B. However, if I move to the option below, exact match, match all labels and all members, Trello will only show me cards with the labels A and B. It only affects labels and members, but in any case, it's important to pay attention to this option to be able to filter the correct cards. I said that there are different Trello plans many times today, and I didn't go into the detail of each plan because these things change all the time. So I suggest you go to trello.com/pricing. Here you'll find the different plans. For example, we have the free plan, the standard. This is the one I use most of the time during the year, but sometimes I need more features and I upgrade to the premium for a project. Basically, the difference from free to standard are the custom fields, and from standard to premium are the different views. Of course, there are other differences. If you scroll down here, you see that there are many other differences, but I think these are the ones that are the most important ones. This is it for this one. If you need help building or improving your company's workflow on Trello, please visit vladcampus.com/consulting. And for more courses like this, vladcampus.com/courses. Thank you for your time. Hope to see you soon.